Following is written and directed by Christopher Nolan. It stars Jeremy Theobald, Alex Haw, and Lucy Russell. Following tells the story of a young writer named Bill who has a hobby of following strangers. One day, he follows a stranger who approaches him, and this stranger turns out to be a thief named Cobb. Cobb eventually takes Bill under his wing. They start to commit burglaries together and get involved with each other's lives. And as the movie goes on, Bill becomes more drawn to the criminal underworld and starts to realize that he's put himself in far more danger than he has realized. Following is a directorial debut from Christopher Nolan. It was released in 1998. The budget of this movie was $6,000, which makes it one of the least expensive movies ever made. And it goes to show you that you don't always need a big budget to make a good movie, because Following is a very impressive directorial debut that consists of solid performances, smart writing, great direction, and a story that had me consistently riveted. Following has a non-linear story, which means it's not told from beginning to end. This movie constantly jumps from the present to the past to the future, and in someone else's hands, this movie could have come off as very jumbled or too convoluted, but Christopher Nolan utilizes this technique to his advantage, and it actually makes the movie that much more impactful and makes it more intriguing. And as I stated before, I was just consistently riveted. This movie is only 70 minutes long. It's about an hour and 8 minutes long exact, if I'm not incorrect. And consistently, like I said, I was into the story. The pacing is very fast. My favorite thing about this movie is the screenplay. As I said before, it's smartly written. I think the dialogue is well written, it's well delivered. And what I like about this movie so much is the fact that this movie pretty much only has 3 central characters, with one other character who's only in the beginning and the end of the movie, but this movie has 3 characters. And no one's really a good person. Even our protagonist, who starts off as kind of a weird person who has this strange hobby, but as the movie goes on, he starts to become a criminal, and by the end of the film, you don't know who to root for. You can make an argument on who's a shittier person, but at the end of the day, these people have their flaws, and they have their fair share of not so good qualities. So I think that made for a more interesting arc for these characters, and it made me more invested in the story. All these actors in this movie are either a family member or a friend of Christopher Nolan's. And the best actor in the movie for me was Alex Haw, who plays the thief known as Cobb. And the craziest part is that he's not even an actor, he's an architect. This is the only movie that he's acted in, and I thought he did a hell of a job. I loved the character's charisma. I thought he had a kind of a twisted sense of humor. Like, he was funny, but his humor was high-key dark. And I just thought he did a really good job. I liked our protagonist. I thought he made some interesting choices as the movie goes on. You start to realize that he's a writer who's willing to do anything to gain material for his new book. And that's why he starts to become involved in burglaries and starts doing things he normally wouldn't have done, because he's trying to look for inspiration for new material for his book. And I just thought it made for an interesting story. There's a lot of twists and turns. There is a big reveal at the end that I didn't see coming. Specifically, the last 10 minutes of the movie, I was very invested. And I rewatched the movie 2 nights ago, and I think the movie really holds up well. I would say about 90% of the movie holds up extremely well. A couple of flaws I do have with the movie. I don't think the film is perfect. One flaw I do have with it is the runtime. I will say, like I said, I was constantly riveted. 70 minutes goes by like that. But I couldn't help but think to myself, if this movie was longer, maybe 2 hours, then I think it could have been better. I think if they had explored more ideas, explored more of the characters, it probably would have been an all-time great. There are some scenes that don't age very well for me. For example, there is a fight scene between 2 characters, doesn't come off as very convincing, as well as some murder scenes. And I understand that this film had a $6,000 budget, and Christopher Nolan can only do what he could. I mean, there was a certain point where he could only pay out of pocket for this movie, and a lot of the scenes he had to do only 1 or 2 takes, and that was it. I get that, but watching the movie, I couldn't help but feel a little bit taken out whenever those scenes were present. But other than that, I think this is a very impressive thriller. It's not a groundbreaking or incredible movie that is gonna revolutionize cinema. I mean, it hasn't, but it's a thriller that's really well executed, and it's way better than it has any right to be for a first-time movie, and the fact that the actors in the movie are friends of Christopher Nolan's, and the acting is pretty good, and it turned out the way it did, that's a hell of a feat for Nolan. And a lot of his storytelling techniques that are present in Following are utilized later on in his filmography, and he eventually perfects it. But it shows here that he had potential, and we know him today as one of the best directors. And this is his first movie, Following. I'm going to rate it an 8 out of 10. I think it's very solid. I think you should check it out if you have not seen it. It was released in 1998. It's black and white, and it's really good. And that's my review of Following. I will be reviewing every Christopher Nolan movie leading up to Tenet in chronological order, which is why I started with Following, since it's his first movie. Next week, I'll be reviewing Memento, and I'm very excited to review that one. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and I hope you guys are convinced to check out Following when you get the chance. I will see you next week. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you later. Take care.